guess what? You're watching the kick out. And on this one, we're not doing a top countdown or anything of that nature. I'm going to give you a little insight about me and why I wrestled. Let's get to it. So, on this episode, I'm going to get into the life of me wrestling and why I started wrestling. There is a lot of ground to cover with such little time, but I'm going to give you as much detail as I possibly can and let you know why it happened. So, obviously, when I was a little kid, I loved wrestling growing up. The first person that captivated me was Ultimo Dragon. I loved his style. Like I've said previously, he was a powerhouse. He had great strikes. He was a submission artist. He's all around guy. Also loved his gear. He came out all the time, different colors, green, black, pink, especially the one against Rey Mysterio, fire. But then as I started watching more and more WCW, I started captivating towards Sting even more. And Sting was the surfer guy. He was really rad and cool. And then he had, the transformation. And I still think that's one of the greatest transformations to happen in wrestling. So, that really, like I said, that captivated me as a child. And, excuse me, whenever WCW finally folded, I didn't really have that next star that I followed. I just didn't have anybody really to watch. I mean, of course I had Jericho, Malenko, and Eddie, but I wanted that main star. Benoit, of course, he was up there, but I wanted to find my new favorite. So that's why I gravitated towards Edge. I really, really liked how Edge was a tag team wrestler, and then he came over into the singles competition. So the reason I state that is because before I became a wrestler, I actually was my first match we'll get into, I was a singles competitor. But before we get to that, I always dreamed of being a wrestler, and I met a guy named Dean, which Patrick knows very well too. And Dean was working at Walmart when I was, and he knew that I was really big into wrestling. And I told him that I wanted, to try my talents out. So he was like, hey man, why don't you come meet up with me at my house and we can discuss it more and I can show you some stuff that I got. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Drove out to his house one day. We had a super awesome conversation about what I wanted to do. And next thing I know, he's offering me a spot over a charity show at Pfeiffer University, which at the time, I hope Dean doesn't kill me. I'm pretty sure the company was called NC2W, and that's what we were doing. So I believe it was North Carolina Championship Wrestling is what it was called. But I had my first match there, and, it didn't take very long to get into wrestling. My first match was in a battle royal, and which I had no idea what I was doing. This was before I even had training or anything of that nature. And I just got in there and got thrown out within like the first 5 minutes of the match. And then I actually had a match against a guy. His name was AK Nightmare. And I was super nervous, and he knew that I didn't have any experience, but I wanted that opportunity to get into the ring to see if I would like it. And the guy was like, yeah, you know what? You just listen to me and we'll have a great match. We had that match, and it was a 5 to 6 minute match. We went in there, we knocked it out. I went to the back, and the very first thing that he told me that I'll never forget was, you have a lot of talent. And he said, with you to have zero training. He asked me, he said, what training did you have? And I said, it's all backyard training. I've watched a lot of videos on how to do moves, how to sell and stuff. And he's like, well, keep doing your selling, because your selling is amazing. You obviously need a lot of work on what you're doing in the ring, but besides that, like your selling is great. And I was like, all right, cool. So that stuck with me. Then I finally ended up getting a trainer, and that was Eric. And Eric met up with him a few times a week, and he taught me everything that I know about the presence of the ring, knowing the crowd, knowing exactly what you need to be doing to feeding into the crowd's wants and needs and stuff of that nature. I was a little bit more old school. I didn't really like planning any of my matches. If anything, we had high points, and you knew how you were going to start your match. You knew a big spot. You knew what you were going to do in the middle, and then you knew how to finish your match. So, like I said, high points of our match that I would love to do. I didn't really care for that Macho Man Randy Savage style where I have every single punch and kick already pre-made. I like to feed off the crowd, as we've said before on the Wrestling Open Forum. So, when I finally got my training and I started going into it, I started getting more matches. And a lot of people wonder how I ended up with my finishing moves. Originally, I wanted my finishing move to be, and I don't know what you would call it, and I've seen Hurricane do it a few times, but I actually didn't know he did it until I saw him do it on Raw one night. But besides that, I never seen him do it when I did it. So I thought I had created the move, but obviously I didn't. But it's almost an underneath unprettier, which I'm going to try and describe this as best as I can. You grab their arms underneath your pits, you put your head underneath their shoulder, and then you turn around where they're upside down and their head is underneath your armpit, and you're holding their arms like this, and then you like fall down. So I used to call that the cherry lemon bomb. And the reason for that was because I was a big Cherry Lemon Sun Drop fan. So that was the name of my finisher. But then I had a match randomly at a fair down in Faith. And I remember in the middle of the match, it was a cruiserweight title match. And the guy that had the belt was like, hey, look, when you go out there, we're gonna feed you to the crowd as much as possible because you're gonna be the face and I'm gonna be the heel. I'm really gonna dog you. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And, we discussed what we were gonna do. And we go out there, and the crowd was really behind me. And there was about 250, 300 people out there. I mean, it was packed. And people were really into this match. They were going back and forth. And I remember laying down. My head was like here, and his head was here. We're both looking up. And he says, hey, man, go on top and give me a frog splash after this missed clothesline. Give me an elbow. I'm going to fall, and, you hit me with it. And I was like, yeah, all right, cool. So I go up there, and I'm like, all right, frog splash. So I go, and I do a frog splash. And the crowd lost their mind. Almost like somebody was going through a table. I had never heard the crowd get so excited. And I hit him with it. I hook him. And, of course, right when I hook him, he says, dude, you're taking home the title right now. And I looked down and I said, what? And when I looked down and I heard him say that, the ref had already counted 3 and I had won the title. And that was my first championship for the Cruiserweight Championship for our organization at the time. And I was just kind of like, oh man, this just kind of happened. I wasn't supposed to win this. And it really surprised me. So that was my first championship that I ever won. And then we started getting in NCAW, I believe. That was the next promotion that I eventually branched off to. The company was overseen by George South. And then we had a lot of the talent there that George was training at the time. And then there was 2 guys that were actually paying for the shows and stuff like that. And I was good friends with them. Aaron, and then Raymond Helms was his name Chad, that he went under. So when we started doing this promotion, I was nothing really big at first. Whenever we started wrestling, I'd go in there, first match, whatever, do my thing. And then George got really aggravated that I was curtain jerking. And I remember the fans were really behind me. I think the first year this was like a thing. And then like going into the second year, excuse me, George was like, I don't know what's going on, Fruit, but you don't need to be last or first. You need to be out there last. And I was like, oh, I'm just doing what they did. No, you're not going to do what they say. You're going to, you know what? Aaron, get over here. And then Aaron comes over and he's like, yeah, what's up, Georgie? He's like, you ain't going to have Hippie over here wrestling first. He sold 50 tickets, which, I mean, to me, that was a lot of tickets, you know. I was like, we got 100 people out here, whatever, 75, whatever. So he was like, tonight, he's going to win the Cruiserweight title. He's going to win the tag titles and the world title tonight. And Aaron's kind of like, okay, so what about everything we've been building? I don't care. The crowd's out there for him. You gonna do it. So Aaron kind of looks at me and is like, you want to do 3 matches? And I was like, well, shit, I guess I don't have any. So let's do it. Yeah, whatever. So the Cruiserweight match, which was the way the Cruiserweight match went into the tag match was pretty fun. So I was the first match of the night, and I fought I fought Chad. So he called himself Raymond Helms, the Ice. And he was the Cruiserweight champion, which we were pretty big for us to be Cruiserweight. So I'm just saying. But we go in there and we're having our match. And we had discussed that what would happen is I would be in a quick match with him, just like 4 or 5 minutes. And I would get him with a roll-up pin. And he would get super mad and he would start stomping me and start just taking me out, whatever. So then I roll him up, I beat him, he starts kicking me, and my tag team partner, Xavier Maximum, came out, and he's like helping me with backup, or excuse me, it wasn't Xavier first, it was Aaron coming out to help him beat me down, and then Xavier came out for the save. And then that's when they made the announcement that the match was going to now turn into a tag team match for the tag titles with him and his partner. And just to let you know, we went over in that match too. So won the Cruiserweight title, won the tag team titles. So I had about an hour and a half break before the championship match. And we went out there, and I remember that felt like the longest match I ever had in my life, which it was pretty long anyway. It was like 20, 25 minutes. And I remember trying to punch, and my arm just felt like it wouldn't go forward. I was like, wow, I am so beat. I am so tired. And I remember with that match, I ended up beating him with, of course, the frog splash. And when I won it, the crowd just went nuts. And it was probably like the highest point of my wrestling career, was winning those 3 titles in one night. And I never thought I would ever accomplish anything like that. And, you know, to other people, they're like, oh, well, that was like, backyard wrestling style. But to me, that was pretty much like the love of my life. That was absolutely such a good feeling to actually do that kind of stuff. After that, I had one more run for a Cruiserweight title, and I won it again. So that ended up making me a 3-time Cruiserweight champion in the organizations that I was in, and a tag team champion and a heavyweight champion. But I actually held that heavyweight championship for about 6 months. And I do say this, and I say it pretty loud when I do. They actually cashed in a Money in the Bank kind of thing against me after one of my matches. And my fans, or the people that would buy the tickets to come see me, were genuinely pissed that I lost the belt that way. So they stopped coming because they thought I got wronged. And I mean, I try to tell them, hey, that's part of the show. It kind of happens, but they didn't want to have anything of it. And then before you know it, they just couldn't keep up with the organization anymore, because the people just weren't there anymore. But I actually had to stop wrestling, and most people don't know this except for my few close friends. I stopped wrestling because I had a thing that was called supraventricular tachycardia, which is SVT, irregular heartbeat. I couldn't really get my heart rate up to a certain beats per minute, because if I did, it would actually overload, and the heart would jump up to about 160, 170 highest it ever got was 200. And it was a pretty scary moment. And I remember having a training session when it happened. And Eric was like, you know what, man? I think you need to get that taken care of. I think you need to just step away from pro wrestling. And I mean, I was broken whenever he told me that. So, you know, for a couple months, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I eventually ended up going to college and getting my certification in filming and, well, mass media or whatever you want to call it, where I could do stuff like this and film and do podcasting. And this is my new love now. And of course, I still love professional wrestling. And, you know, Patrick gave me an awesome opportunity to get back in the ring, which the opportunity wasn't Patrick's idea, but it was more Jason Cade's idea to make this happen. It was all on organic magic. It just happened. And then approaching me one night after a show and going, you know, this is going to go somewhere and I'm going to talk to Patrick. And then Patrick hits me up the next day and be like, hey, just to let you know, Cade's going to be taking over this and this is what's going to be happening. And, you know, I had my last match that I probably will ever have, which was against Cade. And I am extremely thankful that I had that match because I got to actually go out there one last time. And a lot of my friends supported me in that. And I personally want to thank the fans that came out there and my best friends and Patrick and even Cade for that moment and stuff like that. You know, one of the coolest moments ever was having, you know, going around smacking hands with fans. And one of them happens to be D'Angelo Williams. And then D'Angelo Williams is kind of going, yo, I just hit his hand. Like, you know, that's kind of cool. That's, you know, it just doesn't feel real when that kind of thing happens, you know, but it's stuff like that that makes you happy that you were a part of this kind of business and stuff like that. But if anybody here watches this and you ever want to be a professional wrestler, you know, it takes a lot out of you. It really does. I see it every day, every month whenever I would film. You know, I see these wrestlers constantly putting their bodies on the line and what they go through. And in order for you to become a wrestler, you've really got to put everything out there. You can't half-ass this. You can't, because you won't go far. And to be fair, I half-assed my wrestling career, and you know that's why I never made it. Why I made it big. But you know, the time that I did have, I enjoyed it a lot, and I wish I could have done something differently. But can't do anything about it now. And what I do now, I absolutely love. But I wanted to give you a little insight on what my career was, and like I said, this is a mini version of this. And one day I'll get more in depth with matches and moves and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't want to make this a hour podcast, but there's so much more to cover on that. But one day I will give you much, much more info on how that all came about, even like coming up with moves and conversations that I had with wrestlers and shows and stuff of that nature. And when that happens, I will we'll put that out there on the Wrestling Open forum and let you know when that's coming available. But like I said, this episode was a lot different. I wanted to give you a little insight of what my career was of wrestling and stuff like that. But the next episode, I will promise you that I will have a greatest or favorites, top 5, least, worst, whatever. I will have it on the next episode of The Kickout. Thank you for stopping by.